Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Wilhelm Scream, and welcome back to another day in Destiny 2 Shadowkeep for some more Destiny 2 news and Season of Dawn intel. And guys, we have the Bastion quest now available. The map has been completed, and a lot of people have done rundowns on this, so I'm just going to run through it again really fast. First thing you're going to need to do is go to the Corridors of Time and follow the map that is being shared on the top of the screen right now. I'm going to leave that map up there for the remainder of the video. Next thing you're going to want to do is go to the Tangled Shore, and you're going to need to defeat some fallen captains. The easiest place to do this is Quitter's Well Lost Sector, because you can just run into this Lost Sector. There's a fallen captain that spawns right at the beginning. Simply kill him, and then run back out and reset the Lost Sector. Next thing you're going to need to do is go back to Spider, and then go to the Lost Sector empty tank and defeat the enemy at the end of that. Return to Spider, and he's going to give you this part of the next step. Memento. He's going to need you to complete some spider bounties, kill some challenging enemies, and complete some public events. The last two you'll do together, but hopefully, like me, for the first part, you had some spider bounties saved up over the last week or so, and you can just turn these in and get that section done. The next thing you're going to do is go and do some public events. Now, obviously, the best way to do this is by making these public events heroic, because they're going to double count, so it's going to count as 2 public events completed rather than 1. And if you can get a lost sector, or get a public event near a spawn location, you can essentially double dip on all your public events by completing one, looting the chest. It is important, I believe, to loot the chest, and then going back into the same spawn location and essentially getting the same public event on another server. So basically, you can do this up to 2 or 3 times. Sometimes if you get lucky and things are moving fast enough. Sometimes people are doing non-heroic public events, so you can get a non-heroic and a heroic if somebody else on another server is basically going the long route. In this particular case, it kind of glitched out on me. The lost sector, or the public event was actually taking place. However, I wasn't seeing certain animations for it, but it was still there and it still double counted. So I was able to get actually 4 public events completed for that. You'll also obviously get your challenging enemy kills by doing public events, and occasionally see the yellow bar roaming around that particular zone. Usually one spawns right after a public event. The next thing you're going to need to do is go to Trapper's Cave. This is the only lost sector inside of the Four-Horn Gulch zone. Go to the end and you'll see this little interact. You can basically just run up and loot it, and you'll get the next part of the quest, which will have you do the Hollowed Lair strike. This is actually at 750 for some reason, and there is matchmaking. You'll need to kill this one particular new ad that spawns near the end. He'll give you the last part of the Bastion quest, which will tell you to go and talk with Saint 14 again, who will ultimately give you the actual weapon. So that is the quest in a rundown, guys. A couple of cheeses in there, a few little glitches that can take place. Obviously, the public event thing has been around for quite a while, but utilize it. The fact that you can have bounties have done before, hopefully, maybe you have a couple left over. Maybe you didn't think that you could do that. If you have a couple of spider bounties left over, use them. Things will help out. Now, on to Bastion itself. I'm going to take a little bit more time to go into how I feel about this weapon, because I did take some time to actually use it in PvP, not so much PvE, because I could imagine how it's going to act in PvE. It's going to feel fairly solid, but not necessarily your go-to, especially if you're using a fusion rifle. I would imagine most people are going to use a fusion rifle with a burn on it, just because it makes a lot more sense. It does have some interesting damage fall off in that it does over-penetrate, but it doesn't over-penetrate for the full amount of what your shot would actually do. Meaning if your shot is doing, 1,000 damage, it's not like you're going to get 2 bullets that do half the damage and then the rest of them do 1,000 damage. It's going to be more like you're going to get the 2 bullets that do maybe 1/3 of the damage and then another 3 that do maybe half the damage. Doesn't work quite the way you want to think. But in PvP, I have a completely different opinion. I don't really think this gun is a fusion rifle at all. At least it doesn't act like one. Sure, there's a charge time on it. If that's your criteria for what a fusion rifle is, I understand, as that is the only really way we've talked about fusion rifles in the past, as being at least the gun mechanic section of it. You charge it up and you fire it. There you go. We've had certain things like Lord of Wolves, shotgun, which kind of have a different take on a shotgun that's sort of reminiscent of a fusion rifle. So if the Lord of Wolves is a shotgun, and it is a shotgun, it's an automatic shotgun that behaves somewhat like a fusion rifle. This is the fusion rifle that is somewhat like and behaves like a shotgun. Except that it's way easier to use than a shotgun. I don't know if anybody is really saying this yet, but I think this gun is, well, it's Noob City. This is no real ifs, ands, or buts. This is the meta of the game right now, and maybe it's a little early to say that, but I can't imagine now that this gun is going to be available, and it's really not that difficult of a quest to get, that people aren't just going to be using it like crazy, and I can especially see it being utilized the most in Iron Banner because of the damage fall off. Like, you get some serious slugs in this thing. It fires 7 slugs, I believe, per shot. So there's a weird, like, weapon dynamic there where your shots, like the number of bullets you actually have in your clip, are not like reminiscent really of the amount of shots you're actually going to shoot. I mean, like, I'm trying to think if there's a weapon really like that maybe I'm just like blanking on right now, but it's just weird. I mean, there's just no real way to say other than it's just weird. And you don't have to really be on target that much. Like, it doesn't shoot one particular like big it kind of shoots more like like a shotgun. It shoots sort of like a wave. And I've seen this when like I was up in the air and I was hovering and I was sort of shooting down on somebody while I was dropping, and I was actually able to see the bullets, I think you'll actually see them in this clip, sort of fall down on the enemy as I was actually descending. And it didn't come down as like 3 like or 4 like shots in a line. They came down in a wave. So it was like a spread shotgun. Like, that's really how it was viewed by me in that particular case. So I'm not totally sure how the tracking of this thing goes, but it doesn't seem to miss. Like, there was points in this where I was way out of position, and somehow I was able to just sort of slide away with the kill. So I really don't know how. I'm sure there's going to be some crazy exploits that come into play with this gun, just for the ammo alone, just like the way that the ammo sort of functions. But for new players, especially players who are maybe like playing on PC for the first time, maybe they're making the transition to PC from a console, and you're not used to using a mouse and keyboard yet, and you're using a controller, this is just easy mode. The auto aim that you get from using a controller on PC alone will just, you can see right there in that shot, like you could see as I was dropping, you saw 3 shots, boom, 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 actually land, in like this sort of, perfectly symmetrical pattern. And it's just going to be really, really simple for people who have controller. It might actually be like just full-on OP using this weapon on controller. I'm not sure how it'll fare on the mouse and keyboard, but I can't imagine it'll be that much different. There's not really that big of a kick to the weapon, and there is a really easy way to mitigate any kick that you already get, simply by letting off the trigger right as the bullet actually charges. And if you're aiming down smart scope, you can tell when exactly that is because the symbols will match up. Now, I think there's going to be something more to those symbols. I don't know. It's kind of a weird little Easter egg that they added to this gun. But if you basically are aiming down sight, which is probably the best way to shoot this gun, if you're going for, obviously, for any range. If you're kind of just running and gunning and occasionally you shoot from the hip, good, always well utilized. I tend to, having used a lot of fusion rifles in the past, I tend to usually like charge, and then as soon as I'm about to shoot, sort of snap aim down sight. That's sort of the way I always shoot every gun, though, because you kind of get the added auto aim of the hip fire, and then you get the precision of the smart scope. So it's kind of a good amalgamation of the ways to shoot, which I think is probably going to be the best for this gun. And then again, just getting rid of any of that added kick by releasing the trigger as soon as the bullet fires, because it'll just continue to fire the rest. You don't have to hold down the trigger or hold down your finger on your mouse. So that's going to be it for the video today, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the gameplay and the run through of the quest. Like I said, a few glitches, a few cheeses in there that you can use to get through this whole thing quicker. This gun, well, like I said, it's going to be, I feel like this is going to be a really big deal. And based on what the community went through to get this gun, I think it was intentionally in there as sort of, I don't know, sort of a nuke. I don't know exactly what you would compare it to. Maybe like it's kind of like a Vex Mythoclast and D1. Like that level in its full meta, I feel like it's gonna have that level of impact. And I think these are great things, honestly, because they are easy weapons and they are ways to introduce new people to the game and really get into the PvP side of it, which has really kind of been hindered lately. There's not really been too much to PvP since Trials hasn't been around, but with a gun like this in the game, this will really allow new players to compete in very competitive playlists like Trials. And obviously with Trials being hinted as coming back in the future, there might have been some intentionality to that as far as releasing this gun now. Most people know that as far as the roadmap was saying, this wasn't supposed to be released until, well, next week or so. So, you know, get out there, get your Bastion. Hopefully you enjoy it as much as I am right now. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, I am Wilhelm Scream. We will see you next time. Little.